What's up everyone, Mysteriocity again appearing on your screens for the first time in nearly 4 years. But I don't want to bore you with useless information, so let's just get right into the video. Today I'll be covering something that I have been wanting to cover for at least a couple of years now, and that is the haunted, or supposedly haunted, Riverdale Road located in Colorado just northeast of Denver. The road is located in a rural area with Thornton on the south end and Brighton on the north end. The road has a reputation for being dangerous to drive on, particularly at night, due to all of the sharp bends and curves that plague the road. Anybody who travels the road at night is advised to take it slow because there have been countless injury accidents and some fatal accidents reported over the years. It also doesn't help at all that there are next to no streetlights on the road. But we're not here to talk about the civil engineering of this road or how it was designed or how it could be improved. After all, this is not a town council meeting. We are here to talk about all of the horrifying, eerie legends that surround Riverdale Road and that have been circulating around Riverdale Road for many years now. Stories of ghosts, some of which are harmless and some of which will race you to the death, allegedly. Stories of former slaves, or, depending on who you ask, women that were accused of witchcraft being hung from various cottonwood trees along the road over a period of many years a long time ago. And supposedly, if you drive down the road at night in pitch blackness and there's a full moon outside, you have the potential of seeing bodies hanging from various trees, making it for a bone-chilling experience. However, there exists no pictures or evidence of most of the legends surrounding Riverdale Road. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about 3 in particular that I feel are the most interesting, and legends that I feel can either be disproven or countered with a more reasonable explanation than all of the other more implausible explanations that have been thrown around. The first legend that I want to talk about in today's video is the Gates of Hell. This legend started as a man named David Wolpert in the 1800s went insane, began worshiping the devil, began attempting to conjure spirits in the basement of his home, and one night completely went off the rocker, burned down his home with his wife and 2 children still inside, and then fled the area. He has not been seen since. The property starts with an iron gate, and according to legend, if you pass these iron gates at night, you are entering an ethereal area where the lines between heaven and hell become extremely blurred. You will encounter creepy apparitions, some of which intend to harm you. It is advised that you never go into this area. There's no other way to say this, but this legend is bullshit. Complete and total bullshit. Back in 2019, someone named Katie Rudolph with the Denver Public Library Special Collections and Archives conducted a brief investigation into the legend, and her investigation consisted almost entirely of just reading through publicly available records. Through these readings, she found that the home did catch on fire at one point, but it was not set on fire by David Wolpert. The home was set on fire on November 28th, 1975. It could not have possibly been David Wolpert because he died in 1909. And the proof that this fire even happened comes from a Denver Post article that covered the fire when it happened in 1975, which this article from the Denver Post was one of the public records that Katie Rudolph found. A real article from 1975 covering a real fire completely disproves the legend of the Haunted Mansion, which is tied to the legend of the Gates of Hell. What all of this goes to show is that people have a tendency to take otherwise boring events, such as a fire that burned down an abandoned property that virtually nobody had paid attention to prior to that point. Those people have a tendency to make boring events interesting by spinning a wild story around them. And in this case, it got spun into wild story after wild story after wild story over the course of decades, changing ever so slightly every time it was told. But continuing further with the legend of the Gates of Hell, A sub-legend around the gates of hell is the woman in white. The woman in white is theorized by some to be Catherine Henderson, who is the wife of David Wolpart, that perished in the home fire that Wolpart set before he abandoned the area. So the spirit of Catherine Henderson, dressed in all white, roams the road late at night, supposedly searching for her children. She appears harmless and is often mistaken as a hitchhiker looking for a ride. When a driver pulls over to the side of the road to attempt to offer assistance, she is gone, nowhere to be found, leaving the driver spooked. However, as we just covered, that legend is complete bullshit. Most likely, she and her husband and her children lived a very boring life up until their deaths. Boring, but otherwise normal lives. However, Catherine Henderson is not the only person who has been theorized as the woman in white. The woman in white has also been theorized as the spirit of Heidi McGuire, and this theory is much more plausible because it is grounded in reality. Heidi McGuire was a teenager who went missing in December of 1987 after finishing her shift at a nearby Circle K convenience store. 2 months later, her body was found just off of Riverdale Road near 89th Avenue. I believe in the paranormal to an extent. I believe that if you find yourself in an area such as a home where a family was brutally murdered, or a graveyard, or perhaps an Indian burial ground, you are likely to encounter paranormal activity. Spirits may be harmless, or they may intend to cause harm as retribution for how they died in real life. The theory of Heidi McGuire being the woman in white can actually be backed up with at least halfway credible evidence. If you search Heidi McGuire on Google, you'll come across a page from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation detailing her disappearance and subsequent death. This website contains the only 2 pictures of Heidi McGuire that I could find. Unless there exists more pictures of Heidi McGuire out there, I was not able to find them doing my research. But from these 2 pictures on this website, the second one shows that Heidi McGuire appears to be wearing a white shirt. Granted, this picture is low quality. It's also a very old picture. Someone else who looks at the same picture may argue that the color of her shirt looks more beige rather than white. But nevertheless, I decided to dig a little bit further into this. I did some digging on Circle K from the 1980s online, and I could not find any official pictures of Circle K employees from the 1980s, but I did stumble across this listing on Etsy for a quote, vintage 1980s Circle K t-shirt, indicating that Circle K employees did wear white in the 1980s. Now, this actually adds to the theory that the spirit of the woman in white is Heidi McGuire. It's very likely that she was murdered shortly after her disappearance in December of 1987, and you can infer that she was probably wearing her Circle K uniform when she was murdered. After all, she had just got off her shift and was giving a male customer a ride home. If you do have information concerning any details about the death of Heidi McGuire, you are asked to contact the Adams County Sheriff's Office stationed out of Brighton, Colorado. The next legend that I want to talk about is the legend of the Phantom Camaro. According to the legend, a young man in the 1970s was drag racing his beloved Camaro along Riverdale Road at night. Before he lost control of the car, it flew off of a bend in the road and crashed into a tree. The car, as well as the man's body, were found a few days later thanks to one flickering headlight that alerted somebody to the crash site. Now, this mysterious man has never been identified, and most people who have searched online, including myself, for articles or anything of that nature discussing a fatal accident in Adams County in the 1970s, has never been able to be linked to the legend of the Phantom Camaro. This legend is possibly based entirely on folklore. It's not linked to a real-life death. Or is it? There is some research that I've done concerning the origins of the Phantom Camaro. So I went onto this website called find a grave. If you're trying to search for somebody that died, you can use the navigation features on the website to like narrow down a time frame of their death, or maybe a time frame of when the person was born. You can include details like their birth date, name, and whatnot. Find a Grave is not the only website that offers a digital registry of deceased people, but it is one of the most well-known. And if you look at this list here, well, it shows people that died between 1970 and 1980. The list includes a decent amount of young men who are buried at a local cemetery in Brighton, Colorado. Now, we know that the legend of the Gates of Hell was based on a real event. It was based on a real fire that burned down a real property in 1975. So, who is to say that the legend of the Phantom Camaro is not based on a real death? Who's to say that none of these young men that died in the 70s is the real person behind the Phantom Camaro? If the accident even happened at all, that's also a possibility too. The legend emanated entirely from folklore and was not based on a real death whatsoever. Will we ever know? Probably not. So, in conclusion, is Riverdale Road really haunted? Honestly, it cannot be said for sure, and it depends on the person that you ask whether they believe in the paranormal or not. Although the legends that I covered in this video, like the Gates of Hell legend, could be disproved with simple facts, some of them are much more open to interpretation. Do you have any stories to share about Riverdale Road? Have you ever traveled along Riverdale Road, whether in the day or at night? Did you encounter any mysterious activity? Also, what do you think about all of the stories and legends that surround Riverdale Road? Whatever your thoughts, whatever your opinions, leave them down in the comment section below. I will say it is great to be back here making another video. I have missed doing this, and I have definitely missed being part of this discourse. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace out!